Mr. Chairman, then I'll go ahead and call the Facilities Protection Committee to order. We have a consent agenda, item C1.
Commissioners, Will Colbert with staff. C1 is consideration of commission approval of signed consent agreements and resolution of the following governmental violations. Take.
Any questions on C1? C1 is on. C2.
C2 is consideration of staff's recommendation to issue a rule NISI for failing to address a consent agreement in the following government cases, A through Q.
Any questions on C2? Hearing none, C2 is on. Is there anything else to come for the good of the committee today? Hearing none, this committee is adjourned. Thank you.
It's called to order the Telecommunications Committee for the day. Item C1, docket number 13591 has been resolved and staff has asked for it to be from the agenda, so we're going to do so. No other items on the consent agenda. Let's move on to the regular agenda.
Hey, wait a minute, Commissioner. Max, I just got a text from somebody saying the video is not on. I don't know whether it's unique to them or to
Yes, YouTube is having an issue with Zoom interface, unfortunately. So the recording is on, and we will post the recording once it's done.
Okay. All right.
All right.
R1. Go ahead, Leon.
R1 is docket number 43159, consideration of application for ADAD. Everything is in order and we recommend it be placed on the agenda.
Questions or comments on R1? Hearing none. There are no other items on the regular agenda. Are there any other items to come before this committee today? Hearing none, we stand adjourned.
All right, Commissioner McDonald's asked me to do the Energy Committee today, so we'll get started with our Energy Committee.
Tara, you're on mute.
My apologies. C1 is item number 41533, regulated provider of natural gas, consideration of Scanner Energy's 21st request for 21st disbursement. Staff recommends approval.
Questions, Commissioners? All right, that's on.
Item R1 is consideration of recommendation to end the moratorium and the timeline for reconnections for natural gas customers. Staff and AGL and the marketers are in agreement for a July 1st date to end the moratorium. By having the date July 1st, it gives AGL and the marketers time to identify any medically challenged customers, and they will be at the low priority of being shut off. It also gives time to communicate to customers and work out payment arrangements. The importance of July 1st, because the field techs have to go in each home. It's going to take at least 14 weeks with the backlog to have all the customers shut off. So our recommendation is July 1st.
Wait, the field techs have to go in for a shut off?
I'm sorry. The 12 to 14 weeks is to allow them time because of the backlog. The issue is that when they reconnect, they have to go into each home. I didn't misspeak on that.
Any other questions, Commissioners? All right, anyone else like to speak on this item?
Yes, I would like to. This is Brad Carver on behalf of Scan Energy and also representing the marketer group. I'd like to first thank the commission, all the commissioners and staff for working with marketers on this very important issue. This has been something that we understand absolutely needed to be done in terms of the economy of the state of Georgia. We understand the reasons it was done for Georgia Power to impose the moratorium, as well as the reasons for why AGL did that as well. We certainly support that and understand it. We appreciate, frankly, all of the commissioners and staff working with us to deal with this issue, because as we have said many times, certainly one of the major tool that marketers are able to use to prevent bad debt is the ability to order a disconnect. And so we think that this is a reasonable approach. We're glad that we're moving forward and getting past the situation we're in right now. Of course, we know that the stay-at-home order is being lifted. Our economy is starting to reopen. A lot of the dire predictions for the state of Georgia have not come true, which is very good news, but we still have a ways to go. That being said, we look forward to continuing to work with our marketer group, and we know we have the marketer working group that has a scheduled meeting with Atlanta Gas Light next Thursday. We're looking forward to those conversations continuing, and we'll continue to work with AGL and staff and the commission to make sure this process is handled smoothly. And we really appreciate this commission and your efforts and what was done during this period. And we look forward to reopening this economy and getting Georgia back on track as the #1 state to do business. Thank you very much.
And good morning, Commissioner. Good morning, Commissioners. Brad Nelson with Infinite Energy. Also to echo Mr. Carver's statements, we do support staff's recommendation to lift the moratorium July 1st, and we look forward to working with AGL and staff in the coming weeks to help resolve any outstanding policy considerations resulting from it. So again, thanks to staff and the commission. We really appreciate it.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
I don't have anything related to this item, Commissioner, but I am getting message that no one other than participants can see or hear what's happening on the Zoom this morning, and I just want to make Max aware.
Yes, I am. Unfortunately, the interface between Zoom and YouTube is not functioning.
Okay.
So the only thing I can do is record this meeting and then post it on our website later.
Okay, great. Thanks, Max.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else on this item? All right, it'll be on. Next item. Or anything else for the good of this committee?
Yes, wait a minute.
Hey, I think Rob.
There's a full agenda.
Rob, you're on mute. You got to turn off mute.
Can't hear you, Rob.
Try the mute button on the computer. Yeah, you got to do the one on the computer too.
Yeah, you're still muted on the computer, Rob.
Yep. When you're using the phone, it shows mute on the screen. I mean, technically, we should be hearing him right now. Rob, I wonder if you could log out and log back in, and we'll hang around just a minute here.
When I use the phone, I have to unmute it both on the computer and the phone. If either one is muted, you can't hear me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good now.
My apologies. I was having a problem reopening the actual application, but I'm here. Hope, and you can hear me. So good morning, Commissioners. Rob Trokey on behalf of Commission staff. R2 is docket number 42516, Georgia Power Company's 2019 rate case. Consideration of staff's recommendation to lift the suspension of disconnections for non-payment. On April 7th, the Commission approved Commissioner Shaw's motion to continue the suspension of disconnections and allow deferral of incremental cost of bad debt resulting from the suspension period due to COVID-19. In the Commission's May 14th Energy Committee meeting, Chairman Eaton requested an update from staff and Georgia Power on the status of the suspension period end date. Since the issuance of the Commission's April 7th order, staff and the company have worked to develop a methodology to identify the incremental charge-offs resulting from the suspension period. At this time, staff believes it's appropriate to consider an end date for the suspension of disconnections. It's critical for customers to be given as much notice as possible. In considering when to lift the suspension period, staff considered the governor's May 12th executive order, which requires certain businesses to remain closed through May 31st. And the new executive order also includes a shelter-in-place provision for the medically fragile individuals and Georgians aged 65 and older through June 12th. Staff also consulted with Georgia Power about the time frame for ending the moratorium from a billing and efficiency standpoint. So with these dates in mind, staff is recommending that first this item be added to the June 2nd administrative session agenda, and that the commission issue an order approving continuing the disconnection moratorium through July 14th. And this concludes staff's recommendation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions?
I just have one question, and it's more of an observation between R1 and R2. And don't know if the gas staff and the electric staff had worked together, because there's a different date for each. Is that going to cause confusion for ratepayers that we're going to suspend one on July 1st and suspend the other on July 14th? So I just wanted to put that out there.
That's a good question, Commissioner. I do believe there's potential for confusion in working with Georgia Power on the date. July 14th was at the very end of the billing cycle. And so you wouldn't have an overlap of customers who would potentially end up being disconnected sooner than their billing cycle. And that did not line up with that. That said, it is a commission decision. If the commission would like to either align those or not, that's a policy decision for the commission.
I want to speak up and say that it's important for Atlanta Gas Light to start disconnections on July 1st, because it's going to take at least 14 weeks. And we're trying to prevent having customers shut off and light up season beginning. Like I said, it's a whole different process for AGL when it comes to reconnection. So 14 weeks is needed to shut them off. 14 weeks, the same FT, the same field techs also will be doing reconnections. The same field techs will work on emergency issues. And it takes a lot more time for the field techs because of the backlog. And even with the 14 weeks, that is not using the full amount that could be disconnected. And then you have to coordinate with the marketers as well. So it's a lot more involved for gas.
Thank you for explaining. I really appreciate it. I don't have to answer any questions.
I think it's really proper that the billing cycle that Georgia Power has presented is in order, because that could cause some confusion if there was an overlap.
Well, I want to say that AGL has 22 billing cycles. So it's just not, they don't have the same billing cycles. Like I said, it's 22.
We've already passed that, Mrs. Tyre. We're on a different issue with Georgia Power.
Any other commissioner have a comment before we move to others? Any commissioner? All right, we'll open up the floor. Neil, I think you had a comment.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'd like to start by thanking all the commissioners for having the compassion and forethought to suspend shutoffs for the utility customers throughout Georgia. The coronavirus situation has been an unprecedented health and economic crisis that has negatively impacted the state and its residents in many ways, including a significant number of layoffs, furloughs, and overall major loss of income to thousands of Georgians. Unfortunately, on both health and economic measures, this crisis is far from over, despite our governor's reopening of our state. And in fact, Georgia's cases overall are not declining, as the rate of infections and deaths from COVID-19 have either plateaued or have even increased in certain areas. And as we can see, we're not operating as usual, given the fact that we're still having these meetings and many operations have been taken online. That is clear evidence that this crisis has not passed. Also, let us not forget the potential for a serious second wave of this virus in the fall and winter. On the economic front, a week ago, the Georgia Department of Labor Commissioner Mark Butler announced that Georgia has had the highest unemployment rate on record at about 12%. And given the record number of unemployment claims, still over 200,000 unemployed individuals who applied for unemployment back in March have yet to have their claims processed, leading to a significant backlog of unemployment claims and more families facing greater financial pressures as their bills and expenses continue to pile up during this crisis, where there are few options for new employment. As I stated before, it is absolutely clear that this crisis is far from over, and Georgia residents require greater economic relief and protections in order to maintain safety and security for themselves and their families. By no measure is this a time to rescind the moratorium on utility shutoffs across Georgia. If anything, the Georgia Public Service Commission should be signaling to the public that they should not have to worry about having their lights shut off or their AC stop working during the upcoming hot summer, whether they get sick, if they lose their jobs, or God forbid, they lose a breadwinning family member due to this deadly disease. This moratorium needs to remain in place until we see both a significant reduction in coronavirus cases, whereby Georgians can feel confident again in participating in public life without fear of contracting the virus. Additionally, we need to see employers across our state rehire a majority of those who've lost their livelihoods during this crisis and actively employ them in safe and secure jobs where they can be full participants in our economy again. So we ask that the commission to continue the suspension of gas and electric utility shutoffs for non-payment for all customers during the duration of this pandemic and its resulting economic crisis. We ask that you order the reinstitution of gas and electric services that have already been shut off for non-payment, whether the shutoffs occurred before or after the onset of the emergency, without any sort of reconnection fees. We ask that there be a waiver of all late fees, that utilities be required to offer repayment plans with periods of no less than 1 year. We ask that there's a prohibition of negative credit reporting to any credit agencies for non-payment of utility bills during this emergency without condition. We also ask that utilities include in a bill insert for the next billing cycle on all financial assistance or flexible payment programs and how the customer can access more information about these programs. The utility should also describe eligibility requirements and the timeframes for programs for coronavirus relief. Utilities should make this information accessible to all customers, whether or not they have access to internet or English language proficiency. And there should also be a process developed for a program for post-pandemic improved low payment options and to comprehensively address the energy burden of low wealth households. We ask that the commission extend these protections for utility ratepayers until our state has clearly recovered from this crisis. And I thank you for your time and for your consideration.
Chandra?
Good morning to Chairman Eaton, Vice Chairman Eccles, and to the Commission at large. Thank you for the opportunity to address you all this morning. Again, I'm Chandra Farley. I reside in Public Service Commission District 3 and serve as the Just Energy Director at the Partnership for Southern Equity, a racial equity organization focused on advancing shared prosperity for all across metropolitan Atlanta, Georgia, and the American South. The coronavirus crisis has triggered unemployment levels unprecedented in American history. Georgia is one of 3 hardest hit states in the nation, with unemployment benefit filings accounting for 30% of our workforce. We know that these statistics reflect disproportionate impact on Black communities, communities of color, and many others marginalized by low wages for their essential work. These families were already facing disconnection threats and unaffordable rates for utility services essential for survival in this crisis. Therefore, I was compelled to speak up this morning when I learned that the consideration of staff's recommendation to lift the suspension of disconnections for non-payment would be on the agenda today. The Commission and Georgia Power deserve acknowledgement for doing the right thing and instituting its shutoff moratorium voluntarily. To Commissioner Shaw, thank you as well for your April 7 motion to extend the suspension period. However, many utilities across Georgia and the nation did not. That is why the Partnership for Southern Equity joined over 1,500 utility justice, environmental, faith, civil rights, and labor groups in sending 2 letters to Congress calling for a national moratorium on electricity, water, and broadband shutoffs.
Ms.
Ultimately,
Can I ask you to pause for just a moment? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Commissioner McDonald, can you mute your line, please? It's in the, if you're using the tool, it's in the bottom left of the window. And then, because we can't hear the speakers.
Well, there's no noise coming from my phone. It's totally quiet here.
It's like feedback, and it's obvious to the folks on video because we see your icon appear instead of the video of the person speaking. If you don't mind, and then when you want to say something, you can unmute it, but if you wouldn't mind just muting it, please, so we can hear Mrs. Farley.
And Mrs. Farley, if you could lean a little bit closer to the microphone, that would be good. Thank you. Continue.
Should I pick up where I left off, or?
Please. Yes.
Thank you. Ultimately, these actions that I just mentioned led to the inclusion of utility moratorium language being included in the HEROES Act. Here at home, Partnership for Southern Equity was among 60 organizations that sent a letter to Governor Kemp. As with the national letter, we not only called for the moratorium on shutoffs and reconnection of any disconnected, but included many recommendations, including utilizing low-income home energy assistance program funds to ensure that those disproportionately overburdened by the crisis do not sustain bill shocks during reinstatement or rate shocks in the future. We cannot leave our friends, families, and neighbors hanging at the mercy of their meter, particularly as we march on into summer heat that is set to break records as one of the top 10 hottest years in recorded history, with a 50% chance of being the hottest ever. Extreme heat plus electricity bill spikes, plus the highest unemployment level since the Great Depression, are a potentially deadly combination. And let's remember that just because Georgia is in various stages of reopening, our employment crisis has not ended. People not only lost their jobs, but many of these jobs are simply not coming back. As referenced in the staff's memo, consideration of an end date for the suspension of disconnections may well be appropriate. However, we must all begin to envision what a just recovery grounded in values of equity, compassion, and justice will look like. The timeline and methodology proposed by staff requires more review. At this stage, data-informed decision-making is critical. We know that low-income households, particularly Black and Latino households, already spend upwards of 3 times more of their income on home energy costs as those of other higher income households. Consider that some national and regional data sets, including the Southeast, show disparities by race in disconnections and other important energy security metrics, even after controlling for income. What is the scope of Georgia Power's understanding of this issue as it relates to their customers? What can be done to ensure that this commission's decision doesn't further exacerbate the stresses of the no longer employed and of the essential frontline workforce? Commissioners, our nation remains in crisis with no long-term economic relief strategy in place. I urge the Commission to defer its consideration of the moratorium end date until the June 11, 2020 Energy Committee meeting. We can work together for an equity-centered process, and we can secure and improve household economic stability and improve our collective health and well-being as we begin to recover. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on this item?
Commissioners, I don't know if you can hear me. I just had a few comments. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. On behalf of Georgia Power Company, Brandon Marzo, I just want to confirm the company can and will be able to support the timing that staff has recommended in its recommendation to you this morning for the reinstatement of disconnections. As staff indicated in its memorandum to the commission, we are working collaboratively with the staff to finalize the methodology as well as particulars related to the repayment options. And we hope to have that work completed in the near future. Having both the date of reinstatement as well as that work completed will allow the company to maximize the time from your decision to the reinstatement date to work with our customers on various options, including installment plans. I just want to let the commission know that as an update, and I'm available for any questions the commission might have on behalf of the company.
Mr. Marzo, how would the installment plan be different than arrangements that a customer might have made in last year or another time?
Commissioner Eccles, I want to be quite careful with what I say here because we are working on that with the staff. But I will tell you that we are taking into account several factors. One is when to start those installment plans. But to your question, we do have installment plan procedures that were in place before this pandemic. The installment plan type practices allowing a certain duration of months to repay amounts that are past due would be similar in this practice.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Marzo, commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Marzo. Anyone else want to make a comment on this item? Unmute yourself and make your comment, please. Going once. All right, thank you. All right, do we have another item?
Yes, item R3.
He doesn't have the agenda in front of him.
Item R3 is docket number 42886. It's Georgia Power Company's 2022-2023 utility scale renewable RFP. On May 21st, Georgia Power filed the final drafts of its 2022-2023 utility scale RFP and power purchase agreements for commission approval. As approved by the commission in its 2019 IRP order, Georgia Power will procure up to 2,000 megawatts of utility scale renewable generation over the next few years. Of the total amount sought, 1,000 will be assigned to all retail customers. The remaining 1,000 megawatts will be assigned to the Customer Renewable Supply Program for subscription by eligible C&I customers. Georgia Power plans to issue 2 RFPs. This first RFP is for renewable resources, of which at least 800 megawatts, up to a maximum total of 1,200 megawatts within service dates will be procured in 2022 and 2023. The megawatts procured will be as follows. 500 megawatts of it will be for all retail customers, 300 megawatts for subscription by existing CRSP eligible CNI customers, and up to 400 megawatts for subscription by CRSP eligible customers with qualifying new load additions. The exact megawatts that will be procured will be determined after level interest is expressed by new load CRSP participants is known. Axion Group has been selected to be the independent evaluator for this solicitation. All communications submission bids will be through the IE website. Projects must be sized at 3 megawatts AC and above and can be located anywhere in the US. Developers can either have a project term of 15, 20, 25, or 30 years. Energy storage projects may also bid into this RFP. A bidder may propose a facility that includes a storage device with using one of 4 storage use cases. This allows bids to combine multiple usage cases for what single project. This is an update from previous RFPs due to bidder feedback from previous RFPs. All environmental attributes must be included, and Georgia Power has indicated that it will not submit a self-build proposal. However, turnkey proposals will be accepted. What has taken place so far, April 16th, Georgia Power conducted a pre-bid webinar to discuss environmental and transmission issues. April 28th, draft PPA and RFP documents were posted to the IE website for bidder comments. The comment period concluded on May 15th, and 116 comments were uploaded by parties. Excuse me. Each of the comments were reviewed, and Georgia Power and the IE and staff met to determine a response for each of the comments. And they were provided back to the commenter. On May 5th, a bidders conference was held to allow potential bidders to hear more and ask questions of this RFP from Georgia Power. And on May 21st, revised drafts of the RFP and PPA documents were posted to the IA website. Staff has worked with Georgia Power throughout the process in developing these final draft RFP and PPA documents. Staff reviewed the comments that were received on the IA website concerning the final draft documents and Georgia Power's subsequent modified changes to these draft documents. Staff recommends approval of the draft RFP and PPAs, both energy only with storage and energy only without storage as they were filed. Thank you.
Commissioners, questions on this item? Anyone else with a comment on this item?
Yes, Commissioner Eccles, this is Brad Carver on behalf of the Georgia Large Scale Solar Association. Would like an opportunity to comment on this, please. Appreciate very much. Again, Georgia continues to be the second largest solar state in growth in the nation after 5 years of being the fastest growing solar state in the country. And again, this is 2 gigawatts of utility scale solar, more than 2 gigawatts that'll be coming online in these 2 RFPs. And so we are very excited about that. We are also very bullish on the Georgia market going forward. It will continue to be a fast growing market, and it will continue to provide extremely cost-effective energy that is clean and renewable, and that is also not subject to various and fuel costs. And so this is very important as we have seen through this COVID-19 crisis. And so we continue to be very bullish on this market. We want to thank the commission and staff, as well as Georgia Power, for their continued efforts on growing this market as Georgia continues to be a leader. We also think that Georgia has done this the right way, which is to focus on the right ratepayer and provide below avoided cost energy across the board. And we all know that utility scale projects come in well below avoided cost, which provides significant ratepayer savings. I do want to say that when we dealt with the READY RFP procurements, we did have 2 rounds that our members were allowed to make comments, and that was also very effective in helping to craft these PPA and RFP documents. In this case, we only had 1 round, and then now we have a proposal that's now been put before you. And I think that would be fine if the procedures and the PPA documents were similar, very substantially similar to what we dealt with in READY. But unfortunately, there's been some pretty significant changes that have been proposed by Georgia Power that do affect the market here. Our members made these comments, and again, I want everybody to understand, this is not a process where we're able to negotiate with Georgia Power directly. The rules make it very clear that all comments have to go through to the independent evaluator, Axion. Those comments are then provided to Georgia Power. They can review those comments. Staff is able to review those comments, and then those are then returned to us. So this is our first opportunity to be able to publicly speak about this. And there have been some significant changes in the 3 years since the READY program that will make changes to this market. And we think that, one, it's going to make it more difficult for our members to be able to bid on these contracts, but there's also the risk that the ratepayer savings would not be as much. And I say that because some of these changes to the PPA are going to make it more difficult for folks to obtain financing for these projects. And so I want to bring that before the commission for everybody to understand. A lot of what we had submitted, our members had submitted, were addressed by Georgia Power. We were left with 6 significant items that are changes that in this round, compared to 2016 and READY, which are going to impact this marketplace. And of course, As you've heard from the presentation from staff, those comments have been sent to the people that made them. But at this point now, we have an opportunity to bring this before the commission. And these are some troubling changes to this program. And y'all, this commission and staff have crafted utility scale RFPs that have been extremely successful. They have brought the lowest priced solar energy anywhere in the United States because of the way that's been done. And so these changes are of great concern to us. I will highlight, there's 6 in particular that are changes that are very important to us. But I do want to highlight 2 of these that deal with financing issues that are extremely problematic for our members. Before I do that, I want to address the issue of energy storage. As the commissioners will recall, we briefed staff, we briefed Georgia Power, and we briefed all 5 of the commissioners on the value that storage is going to bring to this marketplace. In fact, we are already seeing, as we have made the point very strongly in the last IRP, that we are now seeing utility scale solar projects, when combined with storage, with the capacity values that storage brings, being able to successfully bid in all resource procurements and win bids. The example we like to use is Colorado. Utility scale plus storage actually was able to win in an all resource procurement because of the benefit of being paired with storage. So one of the concerns we have about going into these RFPs is that storage is not being adequately addressed for what it can bring to the table. If valued properly, the capacity values of what storage brings can actually make it such that Georgia Power might need a little less capacity resources going forward. And so again, this is a big change. Perhaps we can deal with it in the next RFP on this particular issue, but it makes it difficult for our members to be able to bid into these RFPs not knowing how to value storage. And so we do want to bring that to the attention of the commissioners, because we do know that you see what storage is bringing to the table already and where that's going into the future, that in fact solar plus storage can effectively bid in all resource procurements. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention. But in particular, there's 2 financing changes. These are changes from the 2016 READY program and the previous PPAs that potentially can very much impact the value of bids that are brought forward and the success of the utility scale procurement process. And I'm going to bring those to your attention now. These are items 18.1 and 18.2, which is estoppel and the collateral assignment consents. Previous PPAs have included language that Georgia Power will be willing to provide necessary documentation in support of financing efforts, including estoppels. Deletion of this language will likely make financing a project more time-consuming and costly, impacting ratepayers. Georgia Power, so we want to make sure that everybody is aware that our estoppels are used by the market, they're used across the country, and that they are a key to the development of these projects. Secondly, I want to note that financing a renewable project is not possible without a buyer estoppel. So this is a significant change that potentially impacts this RFP process. We want to bring this forward to you. We think that a lot of this could be addressed if we had 2 rounds of being able to make comments through Axion, the independent evaluator, to Georgia Power, as well as to staff. And we think a lot of this could have been hammered out. But this time, because we thought a lot of these PPAs will be done just like they were done in 2016 when they were done so successfully, but we only had an opportunity to do 1 round of comments, and these 6 items were not addressed. So I did want to bring that to the attention of commission and staff. We bring that to your attention because we think a lot of this can be worked out, but these projects, these PPA and RFP documents are here for your final approval, and these things haven't been addressed yet.
Thank you, Mr. Carver. Anyone else? You can unmute yourself, make a comment. Ms. Fuller?
Good morning, Commissioners. Judith Fuller on behalf of Georgia Power Company. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't start with, can you hear me? I'm seeing you do this, Commissioner Eccles. Okay. We want to thank the staff and the independent evaluator specifically. They worked very hard with us throughout the process to develop this RFP. We started this work back in November, and we're very happy to have it at the point where we're asking for approval of the RFP. It was 6 months of pretty intensive work. The result is a very good RFP, and Georgia Power agrees with staff's recommendation that it should be approved as filed. Allow me to briefly respond to some of the issues that Mr. Carver raised. This commission has a rule, an RFP rule, that provides for a very collaborative process, and everyone participates. Georgia Power, the independent evaluator, the staff, bidders, and any interested party. Significant changes were made to this RFP based on the feedback that we got from the staff and the IE and from bidders and from other interested parties. No one gets everything that they want. No one gets everything that they wanted, in this process, but everyone is treated fairly and equally. We assess everything anonymously, so we don't even know who comments and questions are from when we develop the answers to the questions. And everyone had an opportunity to give us feedback. We had an environmental and a transmission webinar. We had a bidders conference. We did have a 2-week comment period that resulted in the significant revisions that we made. Mr. Carver mentioned that there was 2 comment periods in Ready 1. In Ready 2, there was only 1 comment period. And in every other RFP that we've issued, there was 1 comment period. So the anomaly was in Ready 1 when we had 2 comment periods. The rule, the PSC's rule, provides 1 comment period. So we followed the process, and we can take it as a suggestion for next time for an RFP to have 2 comment periods. The issue is that you have to very carefully balance the schedule, because the commission's order gives us COD dates for when you want the resources to be online. And so it's a very time consuming 18 to 24 month process to issue an RFP and to get projects into development. So the schedule is very important, but we're happy to work with that in the next RFP to try to accommodate that. I don't agree that it would have made a difference in this case, because the positions that were taken are positions that the staff and the IE agreed with Georgia Power. And I can talk very briefly about that particular issue that Mr. Carver brought up. But I also want to mention that there is a Q&A portal on the IE website that allows for interaction between bidders and the company throughout the process. It's not just a 2-week comment period that allows them to provide feedback. They're able to ask questions for everyone to see and for Georgia Power to answer at any time during the process. There was nothing new stated by Mr. Carver today. Everything that he mentioned has been asked and answered in the RFP process. We all compromised our positions, and Georgia Power is not here asking the commission to give us back anything that we did not get, that we gave up in our negotiations. But you're being asked now to perhaps give back to bidders what they weren't able to get through the comment period. And let me address some of that just very quickly. Mr. Carver mentioned the financing consents and the estoppels. Sellers approach financing differently. They all do. And most are successful without ever involving Georgia Power. Our contracts have always said that a seller can assign their PPA to the bank, to their financer, without Georgia Power's consent. And that's a reasonable provision. But it's not reasonable anymore for Georgia Power to be contractually obligated to execute a financing consent. And you see these, commissioners, on your consent agendas. They come through when we have to come to the commission to get approval of those consents.
Those all take time and money and effort for Georgia Power. And there's no upside for us. There's just risk and cost and time spent for those. So Georgia Power is merely following the lead of many large utilities in this country who no longer execute those types of documents or no longer contractually obligate themselves to execute those kinds of contracts. To give you a very brief example, I went through my emails from a Ready project from last year and found 100 emails from one seller from under one contract where that they had sent to Georgia Power asking for various consents and estoppels. In one instance, they actually asked us to execute an estoppel for November 1st, and then to execute a termination of estoppel on November 30th, and then to re-execute another estoppel on December 1st. It's not that Georgia Power is protesting, executing things to help our sellers get their financing, but reality is that it's not really necessary. A lot of counterparties don't need Georgia Power to vouch for them to their financers, and those kinds of costs can be considered in their bid. So we can look at it on a case-by-case basis and still provide perhaps some sort of relief to a seller who may really need it, but we have to have some control over whether that's contractually required. So we're just following the lead of other utilities in that regard. So in conclusion, commissioners, we really appreciate the staff and the IE and all the hard work they've done. We do agree with staff's recommendation. We have developed a collaborative RFP that checks all the boxes and we think will result in good solar resources coming to the market to serve our customers for the next 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fuller. Anyone else? You can unmute yourself if you would like to make a comment. Going once. All right, thank you. R4, please.
Good morning. Docket number R4, actually, I want to make sure you can hear me, right? Great. Docket number R4, R4 is docket number 42516, Georgia Power Company's 2019 base rate case, consideration of R&R tariff filed consistent with the order adopting settlement as modified. On February 6, 2020, the Georgia Public Service Commission approved Georgia Power Company's 2019 base rate case and its order adopting settlement as modified in docket 42516. In this docket, the commission concluded after approval of a commission motion that the behind-the-meter netting period length for customers receiving service on the renewable and non-renewable resources for R&R tariff shall be changed from instantaneous to monthly netting for the first 5,000 rooftop solar ratepayers or until new installed capacity reaches 32 megawatts, whichever occurs first. On May 13th, the company filed a modified R&R tariff, R&R 10, consistent with the order adopting settlement as modified. The company has informed commission staff that R&R monthly netting is not technically feasible for the 3 of its residential tariffs. As such, the filed R&R 10 tariff does not provide monthly netting for customers receiving service under the flat bill, prepay, or community solar tariffs. Customers on these tariffs may elect to change their service tariffs subject to the terms of their current tariffs in order to take advantage of the R&R monthly netting. R&R instantaneous netting, as historically has been provided, remains an option for these customers on these 3 tariffs, and all R&R customers after the 5,000 customers or 32 megawatts of new capacity are subscribed with R&R monthly netting. Existing R&R tariff customers will default to R&R monthly netting, provided that they are not receiving service on one of the 3 excluded tariffs. At the end of 2019, the company had 1,068 customers on the R&R tariff with 10,843 kilowatts of capacity. Therefore, R&R monthly netting will be available to 3,932 new R&R customers, up to an additional 32 megawatts of capacity. There are also 970 customers and 10,735 kilowatts of capacity with BTM solar systems used for energy offset only. it's expected that many of these customers are going to switch over to the R&R tariff in order to obtain monthly netting. Since January 1st, 84 new R&R customers have subscribed with an addition of 954 kilowatts of capacity. The company has informed staff that the implementation of the R&R monthly netting will begin in the July billing cycle. Customers receiving service on more complex tariffs, such as the time of use, will begin receiving R&R monthly netting later in the fall. Existing R&R customers will also receive bill adjustments, which will apply R&R monthly netting for excess energy that has been sent to the grid since January 2020 or the customer's 2020 enrollment date. In July, R&R customers on the more complex tariffs will also start receiving the updated solar avoided energy cost that was filed by the company on May 13th, 2020 at the corrected value of 2.993 cents per kilowatt hour. Staff has reviewed the company's proposed R&R 10 tariff and recommends approval with modifications as shown in the attached red line R&R 10 tariff. In the proposed modifications, staff specifically recommends that the participation terms and conditions list R&R monthly netting first. This modification will make it more clear that R&R monthly netting is the default compensation mechanism for eligible customers. Subsequently, R&R instantaneous netting should clearly indicate that option is available to any customer who does not qualify for or chooses not to take advantage of the R&R monthly netting, and all future R&R customers once the approved monthly netting limits are met. Staff is also recommending additional minor edits to the R&R 10 tariff. Staff supports the upcoming customer bill adjustments, which will begin in July 2020, and will make existing R&R monthly netting customers whole back to January 2020. Finally, since it is important for staff, customers, and developers to know how many customers are receiving service under this tariff and how many new megawatts have been added since January 1st, 2020, staff recommends that a reporting process be established to track the remaining available enrollments and capacity for the R&R tariff options. To facilitate this recommendation, the company and staff should collaborate to define a reporting process that can be easily accessed and updated with current information. This concludes staff's recommendations.
Commissioners, questions on this item? All right, anyone else wish to make a comment? You can unmute yourself.
Yep. Yes, Commissioner Kurt Eppersbach here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and it's good to see everyone. I just want to start by thanking the Commission for making this change, and to thank Georgia Power and staff for working out the mechanics of how to implement this, including the retroactivity to January. We do support staff's recommendation and the changes in the red line to the tariff. The only concern I would state is that there could be as many as 3,000 or more new customers adopting solar as a result of this change, which in our view is a great thing. But for those folks to have certainty about their investment decisions, I think it's important for them to know that at least for those 5,000 customers, that monthly netting isn't going to go away in the next rate case. There's language in the order that says this will be reevaluated in the next rate case, but I don't interpret that language as the Commission taking away monthly netting from those 5,000 customers, and nothing I've heard from the company suggests that either. So that would be the only concern I would state, just to make sure that we have this good change and that the developers and customers up to that 5,000 threshold know that this is something that can make an important investment decision about it, and knowing that it's going to be there 3 years from now and over the lifetime of their investments. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to make a comment? You can unmute yourself and make your comment now.
Good morning, Commissioner Eccles. Steve Hewitts on behalf of Georgia Power Company. Just wanted to say that we also support staff's position and the modifications that they've made to the R&R tariff. The only thing I'll say about Mr. Ebersbach's request for assurances, I guess, is Mr. Ebersbach is asking for future assurances that I don't think anyone really can provide, but let me say this, R&R is a tariff, so it will stay in place until it is changed, which requires commission approval. So that's a commission decision whether R&R is changed from the current form that we're asking that it be approved today. So that's all I'll say about that is that would require commission approval for any change to the R&R tariff in the future after it's approved by this commission in its form, which we support along with the staff modifications. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to make a comment? You can unmute yourself now.
Good morning. This is Ryan Barnett. I'm with Palmetto Clean Technology. If I can just add a few points from the development community, I'd appreciate it. So thanks for the opportunity to provide some testimony. We support the tariff writ large. It's great. We appreciate Commissioner Nichols, the entire commission's leadership on this matter. To echo the point made earlier about kind of long-term certainty, we've seen net metering tariffs like R&R 10 enable 2.5 million U.S. homeowners the ability to capitalize on these solar investments and realize kind of long-term savings on their utility bills. And the tariff as written does just that. It provides these 5,000 customers or 32 megawatts certainty as to at least the near-term value of their solar generation. To echo the point made earlier, there is some ambiguity regarding the amount of time these 5,000 customers will remain eligible for the R&R 10 tariff. So there's nothing currently within the tariff or the interconnection agreement that speaks to the term or duration these customers can expect to have access to it. So we would therefore kind of request an amendment, a supplement to include a provision that secures, provides some certainty to these customers for the functional life of their system or another specified period of time, drawing from precedent from other states. So it's important. It's an important point for homeowners who are engaging in long-term contracts and loan agreements to finance these systems. The payback period and kind of worthiness of that investment hinges upon and is predicated upon a somewhat predictable value of the energy that they'll get for their system's production, and these systems produce generally 20 or 30 years. So at any point during that time, if the tariff is revoked, modified as spoken about, that investment viability kind of changes and can be reduced in a big way. So to mitigate against this risk and provide homeowners and developers alike certainty we all need to generate accurate fair, honest proposals that inform sound investments. Many states nationwide and throughout the Southeast, including our home state of South Carolina and North Carolina, have included forms of grandfathering provisions, either directly within the tariff itself or within the rules governing the tariff. So these provisions just include kind of a clear duration, a clear term by which these legacy customers, these 5,000 customers, can expect to have access to the tariff, and the tariff conditions that were available and proposed to them at the time of contract execution. So we'd recommend and ask, similar policy and language be included in Georgia Power's tariff, kind of ensure consumers can reasonably understand kind of the return on investment they're making. Other than that, we're extremely excited in this tariff, the growth of this sector within Georgia is a big opportunity for homeowners themselves, for the residential solar development community alike. We're absolutely certain that, as we've seen in other states, if implemented, correctly and efficiently, it'll very quickly add, many hundreds of jobs to the over, I think, 4,500 existing Georgia solar industry jobs right now, majority of which is in, large scale development. And that's it. Thanks for the opportunity to provide this testimony. Thanks to the commission for the leadership. Thanks to Georgia Power for their thoughtfulness and attention to detail. And happy to provide any follow-up materials or take any questions.
Anyone else wish to speak on this item? You can unmute yourself now. Ryan, I will say that, you know, characteristically, our commission doesn't bind other commissions, you know, down the road, but you're also not in California or New York. We, you know, we're really not known for knee-jerk reactions here and, you know, and changing our mind. So I can't speak for the other commissioners, obviously, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but, you know, I would think it would be highly unlikely that we would, you know, ever pull back on the 5,000. I don't know what's going to happen for others in the future, but I seriously doubt that we would do that. But anyone else wish to speak on this item? All right, that'll be on the agenda. Let's go to R5.
Good morning. This is Allison Morris. I apologize for the lack of video. I'm having technical problems. But R5 is docket number 43011, Georgia Power Company's fuel cost recovery application, consideration of the stipulation and Commissioner Advisory Staff's recommendation. In its filing of March 9, 2020, Georgia Power Company proposed a reduction of $660 million in its FCR 25 rates compared to its FCR 24 rates, which equates to a monthly decrease of $5.02 for the average residential customer using an average of 1,000 kWh per month. On May 11, 2020, the company, public interest advocacy staff, Georgia Industrial Group, and Georgia Association of Manufacturers, representing all of the parties offering testimony in this case, executed and introduced the stipulation designed to resolve the issues in this docket. A copy of the stipulation is provided in the backup material for this item. During the May 18th hearing, testimony which included support of the stipulation was presented by the signing parties. Resource Supply Management did not file testimony nor sign on to the agreement. The stipulation contains provisions that modify the company's application, resulting in an additional $125 million in savings, bringing the total from $660 million to $785 million in savings, or $5.32 per month for the typical residential customer using an average of 1,000 kWh per month. For these same customers, the 2020 summer interim fuel rider paired with the lower stipulated FCR 25 rates will reduce the total bill by $10.26 per month compared to FCR 24 summer rates. Along with these additional savings, provisions of the stipulation continue the natural gas hedging program with modifications, make no finding of prudence, imprudence, or disallowance with regard to any of the fossil or nuclear generating plant outages from the FCR 25 historic period, provide that the company will adjust the cumulative fuel balance by 1.5 million as of May 31, 2020, provide the commission to institute a notice of proposed rulemaking to review the existing minimum filing requirements as proposed by PIA staff, establish a filing date for the company's FCR 26 application, and provide for the filing of updated fuel-related information as specified in the stipulation. Additionally, in conjunction with the ongoing level of analysis necessary to review fuel cost recovery issues prior to the filing of the FCR 26 case, the company agrees to pay for any reasonably necessary specialized assistance to the commission staff in an amount not to exceed $50,000. In its brief, Resource Supply Management recommends that the commission abolish the company's fuel hedging program, but did not object to any other aspect of the stipulation. Advisory staff believes that the record supports the stipulation as a just and reasonable resolution to the issues in this docket, and therefore recommends approval. Advisory staff further recommends that RSM's recommendation be denied. This matter is set for decision at a special administrative session immediately following these committee meetings. That concludes our recommendation.
Does any commissioner have a question for this staff member?
Commissioner Eccles, this is Commissioner McDonald.
Go ahead, sir.
I think one of the things that you hear into this and read into this is the fact of the significant proper management of fuel use by the company, by Georgia Power Company. That proper management means that they are using the lowest cost fuel that's available at almost every hour of every day. I've had the privilege of being in the war room where this takes place in Birmingham, and it's really important that the lowest cost energy fuel is used, and that's why we're seeing this significant reduction, which goes back to a benefit to all ratepayers. That includes the work that the staff has done and the partnership with Georgia Power Company. I'll also like to add that between the last fuel case and this fuel case, that even though the energy mix is trade secret, but the renewable energy side of the generation mix exceeds just south of 400%. So when you say, is Georgia producing in renewable energy, as was indicated earlier by Mr. Carver, that we are number 2 in the nation in the development program, this goes to show that the partnership that we've enjoyed with Georgia Power Company, the developing staff, and our staff at the Public Service Commission, that we are and have been on the right track.
Well said, Commissioner. Anyone else wish to speak on this matter? You can unmute yourself.
Yes, Commissioner. This is Preston Thomas for Public Interest Advocacy staff, and we just want to thank Georgia Power for coming together and coming with a reasonable resolution, and want to express our support for advisory staff's recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, this is Clay Jones on behalf of Georgia Association of Manufacturers and Georgia Industrial Group. We also are here in support of this stipulation, obviously as a signer. Wanted to make clear that when we looked at this case, we were heartened to see that we were going to be taking advantage of lower natural gas prices, but we also wanted to work with the company and with other parties to try to see if there wasn't more we could do, given especially the difficult economic times that not only our citizens are facing, but that are putting intense pressure on our manufacturers and other businesses in our state. And so our goal was to do that, and this stipulation does that in 2 ways. First of all, by providing a further decrease beyond what was filed by the company based on more updated natural gas projections. And secondly, by accelerating the recovery of an over recovery from March that will provide benefits to all customers this summer to help as everybody goes through these challenging times. And so I want to thank the staff, and I want to thank the company for working with us. This is a very good stipulation. I urge you to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Anyone else wish to speak on this issue? You can unmute yourself now.
Commissioner Eccles?
Yes, Mr. Clarkson.
Yes. I urge the commission to modify the stipulation presented by taking out and ending the natural gas hedging program of the company. There's $638 million that's been sent to Wall Street, taken from Georgia Power customers. That money's gone. There's nothing we can do about that to get it back, but we can stop the next $638 million from being sent to Wall Street. Now, sometimes people will compare hedging programs to insurance, and that can be a valid comparison, but it depends on the nature of the deal. If you were offered a $100,000 life insurance policy, the premiums were $200,000 a year, you would think that was a bad deal. Likewise, if your car insurance, your house insurance, You would think it was a bad deal if the premiums charged for the insurance policy exceed the possible payout. Therefore, you wouldn't take those deals. And I urge the commission not to make Georgia Power's customers take those kind of deals and take out that portion of the stipulation and adopt staff's initial position in this matter, which is to eliminate the natural gas hedging program. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak on this item? You can unmute yourself now.
Thank you, Commissioner Eccles. Can you hear me? Okay. Commissioner Eccles, I'd like to echo the sentiment of the other stipulating parties. The company obviously supports the stipulation as a reasonable resolution of this case. It took some balancing and some steps with the parties to get this done, but as the commission has seen, it provides substantial savings, as echoing Commissioner McDonald's comments, to customers. In particular, as Mr. Jones pointed out, there's even a near-term savings for customers during this summer, during a period of time which we know will be challenging as we return to a state of normal. In regard to the hedging policy, it is a decision for the commission as to have a hedging policy, and it's the company's view that the hedging program has brought substantial benefits to customers. The purpose of the program is not to beat the market. It's never been to beat the market. It's to insulate customers from volatility of natural gas prices to the market. And customers are still exposed to upward and downward pressures from the market. We don't hedge 100% of our fuel burn. We actually, per the stipulation, hedge even a lower percentage than we had previously. And so customers will still be exposed to market fluctuations, but this provides an ability to set a percentage to avoid, have some percentage that's such that we can avoid volatility and have the benefits of pricing that we believe has benefited customers over the years. Mr. Clarkson routinely brings up this large $685 million number, and I want to point out a couple things as it relates to that. One, that the large portion of those dollars that Mr. Clarkson cites, he's going all the way back to 2005, a large portion of those dollars are related to the short duration period where we saw shale gas essentially shake the natural gas market. And since that time, the commission has reconsidered and considered the hedging policy and has reaffirmed the hedging policy in different states, as it would in this case. It would affirm a modified methodology if it adopts a stipulation. But the commission has considered those. And we understand that was a unique time in which natural gas prices took steep declines as a result of shale funds, which have benefited customers, because ultimately what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to necessarily beat the market, quote unquote, on your hedges, because that means fuel costs are going up substantially. What you do want to do is provide customers a level of stability. We believe the program, as it's been modified by the stipulation in this case, does that, and we would ask that the commission adopt the stipulation as a fair and balanced resolution of the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marzo. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this matter? You can unmute yourself. Anyone? All right, this item R5 will be on the agenda. Anything else for the good of this committee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. Mr. Bond, this will kind of be addressed to you. Have we received a legal binding commitment from International Paper on the Universal Service Fund project?
I don't know if Mr. Bond can speak. He's with me at the Capitol. We've got a budget hearing that we're waiting in line on. He's listening, but
okay, what about
Mr. He told me he can't speak on it.
Mr. Chairman,
what about Mr. Wackerly? What about Mr. Wackerly?
Yes, we haven't heard any information from International Paper. Of course, AGL did send them language, and they were supposed to draft some responses. I have sent an email this morning to International Paper asking them what the status is to providing that draft language, or their draft language, back to AGL and the staff, and I'm just waiting to hear back from them right now.
Mr. Highsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We the international paper told me just on the phone a couple of weeks ago that they felt that if they could have 21 days, this was 2 weeks ago, if they could have 21 days from that conversation, they anticipated executing what we had sent them once it had moved through their internal processes. I've not heard further from them. I did send them an email, Mr. Chairman, earlier this week to ask if that timeline was still something they intended to comply with, and I don't have a response to that email. But I certainly, based on the last information I had from International Paper, is that they would have a signed commitment to us 21 days from that conversation that I had with them, which I believe works out to June the 3rd, Mr. Chairman. But I'm doing that in my head. Don't hold me to that. But I haven't heard from them in response to my inquiry earlier this week, and it doesn't sound like Mr. Wackley has either.
I have.
What about my inquiry, Mr.?
I have spoken with International Paper, and so this is sort of midstream, based upon the timeline that AGL and IP worked out amongst themselves, which is great, of a 21-day period. So as Mr. Highsmith said, we're looking at, I believe it's June 3rd or 4th as to when they're going to get the comments back to AGL. But everyone's just anxiously awaiting their response, which will be sometime next week. I also sent a quick email. It's funny that you mentioned this, Commissioner McDonald, to both Mr. Wackerly and Ms. Tyre, asking them to do a little follow-up, make sure that they didn't have any further staff needs just this morning. But we're still within the window that both AGL and IP have agreed upon.
Mr. Highsmith, that's not what the information you gave me, sir.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I want to be clear that we didn't have the ability. We didn't have the ability to agree to anything with IP that would in any way bind the commission on what it would choose to do. And Chairman McDonald, when you and I spoke about this, the information that IP had given me was that they needed 21 days from the conversation that I had had with them earlier in the month of May. And again, I'm not looking at my notes to know the exact date of that on this issue. I can certainly go back and provide it, but I didn't. But Commissioner Pridemore, what I want to be clear about is that AGL, we didn't formally agree with them that they get another 21 days to look at this. What I shared with them was that we would pass that along to the commission, that they would sign, and not Mr. Wackley provide additional comments, but rather that they would sign that they would have signed by their executives what we had sent them. But I was very clear with them that I didn't have the authority to bind the commission, to a 21 period. And I don't mean to be so precise about that, but I don't want anyone to think that we said, yeah, the commission will be fine if you take this other 21 days. We said that we would pass that request on to the commission, which I did to Chairman McDonald. And Chairman McDonald, if I misspoke on the precise calculation of the date, I apologize, but it was the number, what they asked for me was 21 days. And that's been
that's the first time today.
The
first time I've heard 21 days is today. The other side of it is, I have not had
this case. I think this is not a literal interpretation that AGL approved something that would have been something for the commission to approve. Not at all. Just that there was a business agreement that AGL said, sure, that seems to work as long as the commission's okay with it. And that's where we're at. But I think that IP and AGL have been working well together over the last couple of weeks. And I think that we're just waiting to get this final response back from IP. But there's a trail of emails on the subject. And so I think that I recommend that the parties that are interested in this go look at their email.
Go ahead, Commissioner McDonald.
Well, thank you. Commissioner Pridemore, do you mind if I speak?
Go ahead.
Anyway, Commissioner Highsmith, Mr. Highsmith did not ask for a email when you had a communication, verbal or whatever, from IP that they were ready to do something with the agreement that you had sent them, and I asked for an email from them confirming that was going to take place. Did that ever happen?
That we don't have an email from IP, Mr. Commissioner. That's true.
The other sad part about it is that all this communication from IP and those involved, I've never received anything from IP since we agreed to promote to fund the project. The communications from IP has gone in another direction. There are 5 commissioners, and I understand that. But the other side of it is the fact that we've got many communities, projects out in the communities that need these funds. And I think IP's had plenty of time. They have not even ordered the boiler, or they have not even committed that they're going to have a boiler. They have asked for an extension of time of cut on, meaning that they possibly may not even have it once you spend all this money. And I am going to, unless something happens between now and Tuesday, commissioners, I'm going to present a motion that we suspend the Universal Service Project for IP, put it on the back burner, and let it come back up again when they get the house in order. That'll be a motion, but and I understand how the vote can go.
Commissioner's welcome to do whatever he seems fit, but this is literally the last few minutes of a football game, and we're trying to decide the outcome before the clock goes out. So I would just like to be really clear about how this commission wants to view itself within the business community of Georgia. So companies, large and small, produce jobs. Those jobs help fuel our economy, feed our families, and provide them shelter. And I think that it's only respectful that this commission, as a government body elected by the people, do everything that we can to help support Georgia companies. I think that Georgia companies at this given time are under an extraordinary pressure. And I think that when you take the pressure of COVID-19 and add it, in IP's case, to a devastating fire that took place at that plant just this spring, again, I would ask the commissioner to look at his email for the links to all of the news coverage of that fire and the devastating things that have happened up there and what lives could have been lost. And thank God they were not. I would hope that some consideration would be given to these employers and employees who are working so hard to be able to put that plant back together.
Nice speech.
Commissioner McDonald, you have anything else?
No.
All right. Anyone else have anything for the good of this committee? If you can unmute yourself, if you have any other comment or to make. All right. Well, we will momentarily, actually, we don't have any administrative affairs agenda today. So in just a moment, we will adjourn this committee session, and then we will take just a minute break, and then we will reconvene for a special administrative hearing on our fuel case. So anything else for the good of the committees before we let folks sign off that aren't interested in our special admin? All right, commissioners, I'll ask you to stay on, and anyone that's interested just to stay put. We'll mute ourselves and we'll resume here in about 2 minutes. Thank you.
That lady has some.
Max, I wonder if you could try the interface again to see if it will connect.
Sure. Nope, unfortunately still not connecting.
All right, we've got our quorum here. So this is the special administrative session of Georgia Public Service Commission for May the 28th, 2020, and we'll take R1.
R1 is docket 43159, consideration of application for automatic dialing and announcing device. Everything's in order. We recommend it be approved.
Commissioners, any questions or discussion on this item? All right, all in favor of this item say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. And the item passes 4-1 with Eccles, Shaw, Pridemore, and McDonald. All right, item R2.
R2 is docket number 43011, Georgia Power Company's fuel cost recovery application, FCR 25, consideration of proposed stipulation and Commissioner Advisory Staff's recommendation. Advisory Staff recommends that the Commission adopt the stipulation as a reasonable resolution to the issues in this docket, and that the Commission deny the recommendation submitted by Resource Supply Management.
Commissioners, any discussion on this item? All in favor of staff's recommendation on this item, say aye.
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 All opposed, the same sign. And this item passes 4-0 with Eccles, Shaw, Pridemore, and McDonald voting in favor. Commissioners, anything else for the good of this special administrative session?
Not today.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day. Miss seeing your faces.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.